about East Africa's strongman, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has ruled Uganda for 36 years. The 79-year-old has ruled Uganda since 1986. Many people see him as a savior for Uganda after a long protracted civil wars. Others see him as a dictator. What do you think about this great man from East Africa? Join me, JW, on a journey as we explore a brief history of this strongman of East Africa. This is Wenji TV, and let us meet at the end of this journey and compare notes.
Here at Wenji TV, we are dedicated to bring you in-depth coverage of the latest news, events, and stories from around the world. Our team of passionate journalists, reporters, and documentary filmmakers work tirelessly to provide you with accurate, unbiased, and thought-provoking content.
Hello to all our viewers. We are back on after a well-deserved break. Thanks for tuning to Wenji TV. Today we focus on the Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Many have saluted him for bringing order in Uganda, yet others call him a dictator. Who is right in these opinions? Here is a brief summary of the life and career of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of Uganda. You are watching Wenji TV, a program produced and directed by JW. Museveni was born on the 15th of September 1944 in Rukunjiri, a district in southwestern Uganda, to Amos Kaguta and Esteri Kokundekanganzi, who were cattle keepers. He is an ethnic Hema of the Kingdom of Mpororo, now part of Ankole. He attended missionary schools and later studied political science and economics at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, where he became involved in leftist politics and African liberation movements. He returned to Uganda in 1970 and joined the intelligence service of President Milton Obote, but fled to Tanzania after Idi Amin seized power in 1971. He founded the Front for National Salvation, FRENASA, a rebel group that fought alongside Tanzanian forces to oust Amin in 1979. He contested the 1980 presidential election as the leader of the Uganda Patriotic Movement, UPM, but lost to Obote, who had returned from exile. He claimed that the election was rigged and launched a guerrilla war against Obote's government with his National Resistance Army, NRA. He waged a 5-year bush war that claimed over 100,000 lives and ended with his capture of Kampala, the capital city, on the 26th of January 1986. He declared himself president and formed the National Resistance Movement, NRM, as his political party. He stabilized the country and restored economic growth, implementing capitalist reforms and supporting a free press. He also intervened in regional conflicts, such as the Rwandan Civil War, the First and Second Congo Wars, and the Sudanese Civil War. He faced a brutal insurgency by the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, in northern Uganda, which displaced millions of people and committed atrocities against civilians. He abolished term limits for the presidency in 2005 and age limits in 2017, allowing him to run for re-election indefinitely. He has won 6 consecutive elections since 1996, but his victories have been marred by allegations of fraud, intimidation, violence, and human rights violations. He has faced increasing opposition from former allies, such as Kizza Besigye and Bobi Wine, who have challenged his legitimacy and popularity. He has been criticized for his authoritarian rule, his repression of civil society and media, his involvement in corruption scandals, his promotion of anti-gay legislation and policies, and his failure to address poverty, inequality, unemployment, and public health issues. He has also been accused of nepotism and favoritism towards his family members and ethnic group. He is married to Janet Museveni, who is also a politician and the current Minister of Education and Sports. They have 4 children, Muhuzi Kainerugaba, Natasha Karujaya, Patience Rwabwogo, and Diana Kamuntu. Who are Muven siblings? Museveni has 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. His brother is Caleb Akandwana, also known as Salim Saleh, who is a retired general and a presidential advisor on defense. His sister is Violet Kajubairi, who is a businesswoman and a politician. It is rumored that Museveni has blood relationship with Rwanda. What is the connection? Museveni is related to Rwanda in several ways. He is a former ally and mentor of Kagame, the current president of Rwanda. They both fought in the Ugandan Bush War and the Rwandan Civil War, and helped each other to overthrow the regimes of Amin and Habyarimana. Museveni also has some Rwandan ancestry, as he belongs to the Hema ethnic group, which is related to the Tutsi of Rwanda. However, Museveni's relations with Rwanda have also been strained by various factors, such as ideological differences, regional rivalries, border disputes, accusations of supporting rebel groups, and human rights violations. Museveni and Kagame have clashed over the role and influence of Uganda in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where they have backed different factions in the two Congo wars. They have also accused each other of harboring and sponsoring dissidents and armed groups that seek to destabilize their respective countries. In 2019, Rwanda closed its borders with Uganda, accusing it of arresting and torturing its citizens, and supporting a rebel group called Rwanda National Congress. The border closure affected trade, tourism, and movement of people between the two countries. In 2020, Museveni and Kagame signed a peace agreement in Angola, mediated by the presidents of Angola and Congo. They agreed to resume diplomatic relations, reopen the borders, release prisoners, and refrain from interfering in each other's affairs. However, the implementation of the agreement has been slow and uneven, and some issues remain unresolved. Recently, Museveni's son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is also a senior army officer and a presidential advisor, has been involved in efforts to improve relations with Rwanda. He has visited Rwanda twice in 2022 and met with Kagame, whom he calls his uncle. His visits led to the reopening of the Katyuna border point in March 2022. He also invited Kagame to attend his birthday dinner in Uganda in April 2022, where Museveni and Kagame exchanged warm greetings and expressed their commitment to peace and cooperation. How did Museveni capture Kampala? Museveni captured Kampala in January 1986 after a 5-year guerrilla war against the government of President Tito Okello, who had seized power in a military coup in July 1985. Museveni led the National Resistance Army, NRA, a rebel group that fought for political and social reforms in Uganda. The NRA launched a final offensive on Kampala on January 17, 1986, and faced resistance from the Ugandan National Liberation Army, UNLA, the government forces loyal to Okello. The NRA managed to overcome the UNLA's artillery and besiege several strategic locations in the city, including the Republic House, the UNLA headquarters. On January 26, 1986, the NRA captured Radio Uganda, the state broadcaster, and announced their victory. Okello fled to Sudan by helicopter, and Museveni was sworn in as president on January 29, 1986. How did Museveni differ with Joseph Kony? Museveni's dispute with Joseph Kony began in the mid-1980s, when Kony claimed to be a prophet and a spiritual leader of the Akali people, an ethnic group from northern Uganda that felt marginalized and oppressed by Museveni's government. Kony formed the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, a rebel group that aimed to overthrow Museveni and establish a new government based on the Ten Commandments and Akali traditions. The LRA terrorized northern Uganda and neighboring countries with brutal attacks on civilians, killing, raping, mutilating, and abducting thousands of people, especially children. The LRA also received support from Sudan and Congo, which were hostile to Museveni's involvement in their internal conflicts. Museveni tried to defeat the LRA militarily several times, but failed to capture or kill Kony. He also engaged in peace talks with Kony, but they collapsed after Kony refused to sign a final agreement in 2008. In 2005, the International Criminal Court, ICC, issued an arrest warrant for Kony and 4 other LRA commanders for crimes against humanity and war crimes. Museveni vowed to cooperate with the ICC and bring Kony to justice. How did Museveni transform Uganda? After capturing power, after capturing Kampala in 1986, Museveni introduced some reforms that aimed to stabilize and develop Uganda. Some of these reforms included establishing a broad-based government that included representatives from different political parties, ethnic groups, and regions. He also created a National Resistance Council, NRC, as the legislative body and a National Resistance Movement, NRM, as the ruling party, restoring security and order in the country by disarming and demobilizing various rebel groups, militias, and bandits. He also reformed the army and the police, and created a system of local defense units, LDUs, to maintain peace at the grassroots level. Implementing economic reforms that liberalized the market, reduced inflation, increased exports, attracted foreign investment, and improved infrastructure. He also promoted agriculture, industry, tourism, and education as key sectors for development. He received support from international donors and institutions, such as the World Bank and the IMF, for his economic policies, promoting social services and welfare programs that improved healthcare, education, water supply, sanitation, and poverty reduction. He also initiated a successful campaign against HIV/AIDS, which reduced the prevalence of the disease from 15% in 1991 to 5% in advocating for region with neighboring countries Kenya, Tanzania,